Aphug full Unit 1 review video. Okay, first thing you need to know, there's two types of maps, thematic and reference. Reference maps are maps that display general geographic information. I like to remember it is because when I'm driving, I refer to a reference map to guide me. The purpose of this map is to find places and help understand physical layouts. Think like a road map or a plat map. This is a plat map. Plat maps display property boundaries, lot numbers, streets in a specific area, often used by government or development. Next is thematic maps. This map focuses on displaying data. How I remember it is because thematic maps display a specific theme across a geographic area. Think like a climate map, chloropleth map, isoline, or an election map. This is a chloropleth map. Chloropleth maps use color to represent the value of a specific variable. I like to remember it because chloro kind of sounds like color, and color is displayed based on the data in the map. Next is a dot density map. A dot density map uses dot to represent a specific quantity of something in an area. Next is a graduated symbol map. On your test, though, you might see it as a proportional map. A graduated symbol map uses a symbol of different sizes to indicate a different amount of something. The last thematic map we're going over is a cartogram map. Personally, I don't think this map makes any sense, but a cartogram map is when the size of a country is shown according to some specific statistic. For example, if it's showing population, Asia would be really big compared to the rest of the world. That's all for maps. Now we'll talk about scale. Scale is what you're actually looking at. For example, this map is on a global scale. But scale can also be regional, supranational, national, or subnational/local. Basically, anything smaller than a country is going to be local, regardless if it's a state or just a city. Next is small scale versus large scale. Large scale shows small areas but large details. Think like zoomed in. This would be an example of large scale. Next is small scale, which is the opposite. Small scale shows large areas but small details. Think like a map of the entire world. Then we have absolute direction. Absolute direction is the exact, precise direction. Think like the cardinal directions, north, south, west, and east. Relative direction is described as a position. For example, I'm left of target. Then there's absolute distance versus relative distance. Absolute distance is exact and precise. For example, I'm 3 miles away. While on the other hand, relative distance is often measured in time and dependent on the mode of transportation. I'm 3 minutes away from target, but if I was walking, I'd be 20 minutes away from target. That's what makes it relative. Next, there's pattern distribution. There are 3 types. First is clustered/agglomerated. This is when data is arranged highly concentrated. An example of this is the amount of immigrants coming in to the U.S. from Mexico. They are clustered on the southwest border. Next is linear. Just like the name says, it's arranged in a straight line. Usually it's along a river or any form of water. The last pattern is dispersed. Dispersed means it's spread out over a large area. An example of this is malls are dispersed around the town so that they have less competition. Another way to think of it is rural is very dispersed. In a rural area, your neighbors are very far away. Now on to map projections. It's important to note that all maps are slightly distorted in some way, whether it be shape, area, distance, or direction. SADD. The reason every map is slightly distorted is because you can't take a globe and lay it down flat in a 2-dimensional rectangle. The first map projection we're going to talk about is the Mercator map projection. The Mercator map projection was historically used for direction. You can recognize this map by its 90-degree angles and its lines of longitude and latitude. Although, like to every map projection, there is a weakness. The land areas near the pole appear larger. Like, for example, Greenland looks bigger than Africa when in reality it's quite the opposite. Next map projection is the Peters projection. The Peters projection is used for spatial distribution related to area. Basically, the size of the land masses are accurate, although the weakness is that the shapes are inaccurate, especially near the poles. For example, Africa seems really elongated, and Russia seems horizontally crushed. The next map projection is the polar projection. The polar projection was originally used during the Cold War between the US and Soviet Union. The strength of the polar projection is that it accurately shows distance used to portray countries and the closeness of all the countries near the pole. On the other hand, the weakness is that landmasses that are closer to the pole seem so much bigger than they actually are. Another weakness is that landmasses become more disproportionate the farther away they move from the equator. The next map projection is the good homosaline. The purpose of this map was to display spatial distribution. A strength of this projection is that the area and shape is preserved. A weakness is the interrupted ocean, so it wouldn't be a good map for directions. And finally, we have our last projection. This is the Robinson projection. The Robinson projection was used as a compromise between the Mercator and Peters. A strength of this projection is that there's no major distortion. The oval shape appears more like a globe than a rectangle does. And on the other hand, the weakness is that everything is slightly distorted by a little bit. Geographical data is essential for understanding how the world works and how it changes over time. But how do we get that data? It falls into 2 categories. Individuals collect geographical data to solve problems for potential research groups. They analyze this data to create solutions within a community. One way this can happen is through fieldwork/field observations. Fieldwork is the act of an individual physically visiting a location and recording data firsthand. This could be written accounts, travel narratives, or surveys, and also interviews. They can also create maps, analyze satellite images, and examine government data. This solves both local and world problems. An example of this is a professor studying the occurrence of a disease in a specific area to help determine the cause. Another more local example is someone collecting data at a traffic stoplight to see the average wait time and adding a stop sign there. But organizations can also use and collect this data. A really popular one you'll need to know for your exam is the US Census Bureau. The Census Bureau collects information every 10 years. The census displays demographics like race, age, gender, religion, and language in the United States. This is also what determines the number of House of Representatives and how much funding goes where to daycares, schools, and hospitals. A different method of data collection is geospatial technology. There are 3 main categories: GPS, GIS, and remote sensing. First, let's talk about GPS. GPS stands for Global Positioning System. GPS receivers on Earth use the location of multiple satellites to determine a record or receiver's location. It can be used for locating borders, navigation, and mapping lines. Next is GIS. GIS stands for Geographic Information System. GIS is a computer system that stores, analyzes data, and displays information from multiple different maps. It can be used to analyze crimes, monitor the effects of pollution, and analyze travel times. The map app on your phone is a good example of GIS. It tells you how long it'll take to get somewhere, tells you how busy it will be, and much more information. Last type is remote sensing. Remote sensing is cameras or sensors mounted on satellites to collect digital images or videos of the Earth's surface. It is used to determine land cover and environmental changes. It can also show you how developed a country is. As you can see in this photo, places with more light and light pollution are more developed. Pop quiz: which of the following best describes the data represented in the image? A. Coordinate for a satellite navigation system. B. Political map of a region. C. Series of geographic information system layers. D. Remote sensing satellite image of land use. E. Cartogram of spatial information. D is the correct answer. That's all for topics 2 and 3. Aphug Unit 1 Topic 5 Review. Natural resources are materials that can be found in nature. Renewable resources are resources that will never run out. Think like the sun, wind, and water. A non-renewable resource is the opposite. There isn't an infinite amount of it. Think like gas, coal, and fossil fuels. Sustainability is using resources now to have minimal effects on future generations. When answering FRQ questions, make sure to mention future generations. Sustainable development policies are meant to combat issues like overconsumption, pollution, and climate change. An example of this is the government encouraging companies to use renewable resources and giving companies tax breaks if they do. This presents a challenge for LDCs. Due to the unsustainable government and little investment from abroad, they can't afford the most environmentally safe way to do things, and instead they have to use the most efficient, when it might harm their environment. Next is land use. Land use is the study of how land is utilized, modified, and organized. Culture plays a role in how architecture will look. Last 2 things we're going to talk about in this video is environmental determinism and possibilism. Environmental determinism was common in the old days, but now is less likely to occur because of globalization and advances in technology. Environmental determinism is the belief that landforms and climates are the most powerful force in shaping human behavior and can make or break societal cultural development. In the olden days, they thought mountains meant simple and not creative people, and then tropical regions meant lazy people because they didn't have to work hard for their food. Possibilism is the opposing view and is more modern. It's a belief that there's a number of ways humans can overcome environmental challenges. Advancements in tech has made this possible. An example of this is if you live in a beach town, you'll see houses built on stilts. This is to combat the issue of rising waters. That's all for topic 5. Good luck studying. Unit 1 Topic 6 Review of Aphug. Let's jump right in. Scale of analysis is the different perspectives of scale. Different scales can tell you different things. For example, local scale could tell you how many people in a city or town were affected. National scale could tell you how the government in the US is responding to a threat. Regional scale could tell you how COVID is spreading across East Asia. Global scale could tell you what are the effects of COVID. Zooming in and out provides different scales of analysis and can reveal different things. In this map, the scale is national, but the scale of analysis is local. Local perspective is the geographical perspective that acknowledges the two-way relationship between local communities and global patterns. Globalization should take into account local scale culture, economic, and environmental conditions. Now on to topic 7. Topic 7 is the last topic of Unit 1. A region is a geographic unit that has boundaries, unifying characteristics, or a certain pattern of activity, and created by people. There are 3 types of regions: formal/uniform, functional, and perceptual and vernacular. A formal region is a geographic area inhabited by people who have one or more common trait. That could be language, religion, or livelihood, and it must have borders. Next is functional/nodal. Functional/nodal are around a focal point, or a node. This is defined by an activity, often around economy, activities, travel, or communication. Many of them have clear boundaries. Functional region needs flow across networks to unite the region. An example of this is a pizza delivery service. The node is the pizza shop, and where they deliver to is the region. They use cars to get around to each person's house from the pizza shop to the house. Next is a perceptual region. This region is based on people's perspectives of a region. This does not have exact boundaries. An example of this is the South. I may define the South as something different than you do. Regional identities is belonging to a group of people within a region based off history or culture. An example of this is Catalonia, Spain. An example of this is people from Catalonia, Spain. People from Catalonia, Spain identify with Catalonia instead of Spain. Next is contested boundaries. This is boundaries that are disputed for political, economical, or cultural reasons. An example of this is the Kurds in Syria. Then there's subregions. This is when a region shares some characteristics with the larger region, but is distinctive in some way. Another example is Catalonia, Spain. That's all for topics 6 and 7.